Hi, I'm Mark Gaylor and I'm a Sony Imaging Ambassador, and this movie is about the firmware version 2.01 update for the Alpha 1 camera. Now, if you're checking your Alpha 1 to see what firmware version you're running, just go to the Setup option, and then Version. And you should see the current version that you're running. Most people will be running the version 1.32 and will be wanting to update now to the 2.01. There will be a few people who managed to creep in with the 2.00 before Sony pulled that firmware update because they needed to remove a couple of additional bugs. So if you're looking to download this firmware update, just go to Sony in your country, go to Support, type in ILC-E-1 and you should be able to then find the downloads for your camera. If you're on an Apple Mac computer and you haven't done firmware updates before, you will need to install a Sony camera driver to your operating system. Now, there are different Sony camera drivers depending on whether you're running an Apple Silicon processor or one of the older Intel processors. The update to version 2.01 will require Alpha users to first update to version 1.35 from a previous version. So it's a two-step process in order to get to version 2.01. Once you've done that, you'll happily be running with 2.01, but this does mean that the camera will be initialized, which is a complete factory reset. So once you reboot the camera, you are going to have to set up your camera from scratch. Now, I do offer support in the camera setup department. I create a range of ebooks for late model Alpha cameras, and this includes the Alpha 1, which is a 660-page ebook which outlines the optimum camera setup. I also allow my patrons to download a camera setup file, sometimes known as a camset file. This is a file you copy to your memory card and then start up the camera from that camset file, and then you'll have the camera setup as outlined in this ebook. Now, if you are setting your own camera up manually, I do recommend that you save a camset file of your own to the media, which is the memory card of the camera, and then basically back that up to your computer. Once you go to this save menu, you'll see that you can save it to the memory card or you can save it to the cloud. If you are saving it to the cloud, you'll need the Creators app for Enterprise in order to enable that. Once you've got to version 2.01 update, it is going to give you support for the Sony's new mobile applications, the Creators app and the Monitor and Control app. This gives you a whole new degree of functionality for your Alpha 1 camera. Once you're rebooting the camera, you will be invited to connect your smartphone to the camera. I wouldn't put off this process. I'd just jump in and immediately try and connect the camera to the smartphone. It's a lot easier than previous versions, so this should go without a hitch. You'll notice that you can provide location information linkage, auto time correction, and auto area adjustment via the Creators app. And so this will make sure that if you're traveling overseas, you're automatically going to get those changes without having to manually go into the camera each and every time. Now, you'll probably be familiar with the previous Imaging Edge app. Creators Cloud app also allows you to control the camera from your smartphone, a bit like having a remote release. And we do have that AF functionality there as well. But the Monitor and Control app also allows you to control movie shooting with your camera. And we've got interesting features such as histogram overlays that we can bring forward while we're recording. So this allows you to perhaps use the smartphone connected to your camera, so you've got a bigger display when shooting movies on the phone. And I think a lot of people will enjoy this new feature for their Alpha 1 cameras. One of the new features of the version 2.01 firmware update is the fact that we now have the touch menus that we've seen on recent model cameras. These give you more functionality without having to deep dive into the menus. We've also got the new main menus that we've seen on other late model cameras as well, that we saw arrive in 2023. We've also got that footer icon touch support where we can control basically all of the exposure parameters by just touching the monitor and then sliding left or right. So these will be very useful features for many photographers. The main menus is another new feature to the Alpha 1 camera. If you're using the touch operation to select menu items and then make adjustments, these main menus are just a little bit easier for people with slightly larger fingers to control most of the camera settings. So this avoids going into the full menus, because the main menus usually have what you're looking for in order to make some changes. And this obviously changes when we're shooting movies. We've got a different set of functionality over those touch controls. Okay, so the benefits and improvements are quite numerous with this version 2.01 firmware, and I'm not going to have time to go into all of the changes that we now see with the version 2 and 2.1 firmware updates. The breathing compensation is one that has been called for perhaps more than a year or so, and so this is going to be very useful. So if you're looking to implement this, because it's not going to be on by default, you are going to have to select the movie mode option, then go into the menus, lens compensation, and then go breathing compensation and on. If you're looking for this menu item with still selected, you're not going to find this new feature. So the breathing compensation, if you're not familiar with breathing compensation, this is a video of the 35mm f1.4, which is not noted for its impressive lack of breathing compensation. As you can see, these figurines getting smaller and larger as I change focus. So if I then implement the breathing compensation and enable that, and then do the same sort of focus adjustments, you'll notice the breathing is now very minimal indeed. And so that's the new feature that a lot of people have been waiting for. Now, the breathing compensation requires a supporting lens. So all of the Sony late model lenses are pretty much supported with this breathing compensation. So I've listed all of the G Master, the G lenses, and even the little APS-C E11mm f1.8 lens is supported. We also have AF assist to go with that breathing compensation. So as we're using autofocus, we can quickly just turn the focus ring to move the focus point very quickly, and then let continuous autofocus kick in and fine tune that. We also have, with the new firmware upgrade, playback function menu, so we can assign our own favorite 12 options for the playback when hitting that FN button in playback mode. So the playback filter conditions just allow you to find what you're looking for a lot quicker than not having those playback filter conditions. One of the other things that we've got is the fact that we can now treat both memory cards in both slots as one memory card. If you're auto switching media and you just start recording on the second card after the first card is full, we don't need to switch between memory card 1 and memory card 2 as we're reviewing images. We just basically go into the playback menu, the playback target, display set of multimedia, all slots. So we'll just roll over from slot 1 to slot 2 without having to do that change manually. That playback FN menu is going to be another very useful feature for many people. If we're using the FN button in playback mode, which was previously assigned by default for FTP, we can now basically use the FN menu to decide whether we're going to FTP something or send it to our smartphone. Now we have also new features called remote shoot function, which is controlled by yet another Sony application we'll download to our smartphones. This is the remote camera tool, and this is going to give a lot of functionality for people controlling multiple cameras via an application on their phone. Another feature that we first saw arrive with the Alpha 9.3, I believe, is the ability to control preset focus. Now this was a feature that we saw on the 400 and 600 GM primes, but now we can basically use a whole range of Sony lenses, and we can have the camera snap to a designated focus distance by using this new menu feature. And we can have like 6 presets there, which is a bit difficult to imagine using given we need a custom key for each one of those preset focus distances there. But again, another useful feature, especially for sports shooters. Another minor improvement was the white balance capture frame size. So if you were often felt restricted with just the one size, we can now switch to large or small sizes. Now, this is going to be a new feature. It hasn't been activated yet, but we have the C2PA in-camera authenticity technology. As I said, it's not live yet, and you will need to get a license before we can implement this. I'll notify my patrons when this is basically operational. One of the things that we've seen with the firmware upgrade for the Alpha 7S3 is this digital cinema initiatives. This allows you to shoot 4K in 24p with the slightly different pixel dimensions of 4K 24p, and that's 4096 pixels by 2160 pixels instead of the 4K ultra high definition that we typically use, which is 3840. This is not a feature for the Alpha 1, but just explaining that this is a license feature that A7S3 uses, and the same will happen with the other things that we'll now see with license upgrades. Okay, a whole new raft of additional functionality for FTP transfer and network functions, which again I won't have time to go into in this short firmware upgrade movie. So if you need additional support and ongoing support after this video, just remember I do offer a very comprehensive support channel on patreon.com/Mark Gaylor. As outlined, I've got a whole range of 600 and 700 page ebooks that allow Alpha users to get the best possible functionality out of their cameras. Just to give you a quick overview, I've got a huge amount of resources that can be downloaded. For instance, I have raw files for all of my camera and lens reviews, and that is quite an extensive level of support there. But I've also got my lens reviews, my raw files for lenses, raw files for cameras, post-production editing workshops there, and also a whole range of seminars, over 30 hours of seminar support for my Patreon Premium and Patreon Premium Plus members. Okay, hopefully you've got a little bit out of this. Just remember to subscribe, and I'll catch you online next time.